Alrighty, so it's officially been about a week since MultiVersus came out, and pretty much a lot has happened since then. We've had a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, and a lot that we need to talk about. So if you've been on the internet any time in the last week, I'm sure you've seen something about MultiVersus because the launch was absolutely massive. With the relaunch of the game, we almost hit the peak numbers that were reached back in beta, and that's kind of crazy considering that this game is relaunching a year after it was released in beta. And with the official launch of the game, it is recreated on a brand new engine with Unreal 5, which means that a lot of issues kind of came with that, and this was later on confirmed by Tony when people were asking about basic features that are missing that were in the beta. Kind of mentioned that, rebooting the entire game took some time, so some things got pushed back. Now, I've made another video about this talking about whether or not the launch was a success, but if you check places like Reddit or Twitter, you would think that it was a complete failure. And honestly, I can't really blame people for feeling the way that they do about the game because there's a lot to talk about. One of the biggest issues, of course, is being able to actually play the game. A lot of people are having issues connecting to the game, and this is especially true on console, but I will say myself on PC wasn't having this issue whatsoever, but the last couple of days I've been playing, I keep running into that exact same issue where it's just connection issues. I'll try to load it to a game and then it'll just kick me out basically. And again, I know this is something that naturally comes with the launch of a big game, of course, but this is just one of those things where, if somebody picks up the game because they think it's kind of interesting and within the first week they just keep getting kicked out like this, they're just gonna go ahead and push that game off to the side. It's one of those things that I've talked about in the past where the biggest thing with this launch of the game is making sure that there's a good first impression on people, and that alone is enough to make it a bad impression for a lot of people. I'll kind of talk about this in a little bit, but it really seems like, with the launch of the game, they're really focusing on the casual players a lot, and the casual players tend to play on console, and that's where they're having the most issues right now. So again, this is probably a short-term fix, but long-term it's going to have a big effect because a lot of people are just not going to play the game. Now, aside from just the basic connection issues, there are also a lot of issues with the characters themselves. I'm talking about characters that have infinites, characters that have bugs and glitches, to the point where certain characters are being taken out of the game completely during tournament runs. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't understand how Iron Giant is supposed to work in this game, especially now that the characters are all bigger. It's kind of crazy, man. This dude's massive. So I don't know what they're gonna have to do with Iron Giant. They just took him out of the game for now, so hopefully he kind of stays out for a little bit, but they've got to do something there. But it's not just Iron Giant, there's just a ton of characters that have what feels like glitches and bugs and just infinite combos and things like that. And I really hate to say it, but it almost feels like this right here is the beta. I almost feel like when the beta dropped, it didn't feel as bad. The game actually felt a little bit more polished, I feel like, and right now this literally feels like the beta version. I don't think I've ever encountered a situation where a game, dropped a beta and then a few months later they released the full game and it was actually almost worse than the beta. Again, it's all the day one stuff that you would expect with a big launch like this, except that it's still kind of in the game and it just feels kind of worse than when the beta actually dropped, I guess. Now, aside from all of those issues, which are, kind of to be expected, one other issue that a lot of people are having are the monetization issues. And what I mean by this is that character skins are crazy expensive and the characters themselves are even more expensive. This is one of those things where if you played the beta, it doesn't really hit you that hard, but when you look at somebody like if you were to create a brand new account right now, you'll realize how long it would take to get all the characters or how much money it would take. You basically get no characters to start out with, and you do have to grind a long time to get a lot of the characters. And one of the main modes that want you to grind is the PvE mode, the Rifts, which in my opinion is just a knockoff of the Smash Ultimate World of the Light. That's kind of what it feels like. It just feels like a grind. I personally don't enjoy it. I try to put an hour into Rifts and it literally feels like World of the Light to me, which again, some people are gonna enjoy, of course, but me personally, it just kind of feels boring and it feels forced. It's just kind of random interactions with computers mixed with bad mini games. It's just something that doesn't really hold my attention span, I guess. It feels very it just feels kind of boring. Now, obviously, whenever I think story mode in a platform fighter, the first thing that comes to mind is Subspace Emissary from Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and obviously that is a much bigger project right there to implement. But it would have been nice to see just something a little bit different, maybe some unique maps just for the Rifts. Just kind of something a little bit more throughout the Rifts, you know what I mean? I haven't even finished one of the Rifts, so maybe these things actually do exist, but I've already put an hour into it, and so far everything I've seen has just been kind of boring to me. And again, there's nothing wrong with including modes like this because it's not for everybody, right? But some people really enjoy that. But the problem is that in order to get some of the basic stuff or the stuff that you really want, it kind of forces you to grind those modes. I'm gonna be honest, if they didn't have the rewards or Agent Smith for free, I would not be touching Rifts whatsoever. But because of that, I almost feel I'm forced to kind of play it, and especially because the battle pass with the XP, it's very limited on how you can gain that, and so you're kind of just forced to play rifts. It also just feels really bad that if you don't have the characters unlocked, you can't really play them offline or like in training mode is what I've been told. Again, I have played the beta. I do have every single character, so it does not affect me whatsoever. But I can only imagine being a newer player and, you know, wanting to unlock these characters, and, you know, it's a free game, obviously, right? And maybe you're like a kid, your parents aren't going to put money into it. It's like, how do you get these characters? It's going to take forever. It's just one of those things that will, again, push away more casual players, newer players, I feel like, and it just kind of doesn't make sense to me. Now, the reason why I keep bringing up casual players and things like that is because it brings me to my next point, which is the core gameplay itself. And obviously, the game has slowed down quite a bit, and overall, it just feels very different from the beta itself. Now, I personally don't have a huge problem with the game speed. I feel like the speed right now is kind of geared more towards casual players. Like, it's more welcoming, I feel like, if that makes sense. I feel like this game is easier to pick up. However, I will say in singles, it does feel like at the higher level, right? It's a little bit more intense. Like, there's a lot more thinking involved. You gotta like kind of play footsies a little bit, you know, like with some characters. Like, I do feel like it's one of those things where it's like, you know, low barrier to entry, but at the high level, like there's like a big gap, if that makes sense. And so it just doesn't really make sense to me that like it feels like the game is, you know, kind of catered a little bit more towards newer players. However, there's so many barriers like the monetization, you know, unlocking characters, and just not having access to the majority of the game. And it feels like all week in the shop, and I know it's only been 1 week, but it feels like I've just been looking at the same exact items. I mean, right now they're selling an emote for Iron Giant who is literally removed from the game, and he was removed over 24 hours ago. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, I know it sounds like I'm just ranting about the game and talking bad about it, but I really do actually enjoy the game itself. I'm having a lot of fun with it. The characters themselves are a lot of fun. I'm just afraid that we're seeing a very similar pattern to when the game originally dropped in the beta version. Back in the beta, you know, it just started off with like minor problems, it felt like, but it was just stuff that either never got addressed or it got escalated or just never got fixed, you know? And it's just one of those things where I feel like until we get proven otherwise, we kind of have a right to feel like this. And again, one thing that I will say about the game itself is that the dev team is really taking a lot of feedback from players, and you can just see that all online throughout social media. A lot of the, you know, feedback that we're giving in real time, they're responding to and letting us know that it will be addressed. But some of the decisions, it just like almost doesn't even make sense. Like with the team that they have and like what they know about what the people want, it almost doesn't make sense that, you know, some of these decisions were made. So it almost just makes me feel like, you know, Warner Brothers in general, and like I said, I don't know how this whole partnership works here, but it almost makes me feel like they're the ones controlling the model of the game, the way that they're kind of doing things, and like, you know, the dev team themselves are kind of limited on what they can do. I'm sure we're gonna get a big patch here soon. I'm sure we're gonna get some kind of big update within the next week or two, but until then, you know, we just gotta kind of wait and see what they decide to do here. I'm very hopeful for the future, but again, I am skeptical as well. And I honestly wish nothing but the best for this game. I really do hope that it does find success and it, you know, continues to have success. Because again, I think the characters are a lot of fun. The gameplay itself is fun. The game speed doesn't bother me too much. I know they talked about, you know, fixing that too. But overall, it's just a fun time, and I just really hope this game lasts for a long time. With that being said, go ahead and let me know in the comments how you guys feel about the game right now, and let me know if you're enjoying it or if you've already stopped playing it, and just let me know what changes you hope to see in the future. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day, and I will catch you all in the next one.